Good morning. My name is Carrie. My friends call me Care Bear. Welcome to my gaming den. If you'd like to become one of my cutie cubs, just hit the subscription down below and turn on the notes to let you know when I upload a new video. Now, we are back at Never Alone now that my computer's fixed. Never Alone is a side-scrolling game which introduces you to the Native Alaskan or Inuit culture. And a story is being told throughout the game, which I find to be quite beautiful. And throughout the game, I had to collect these little owls to unlock these cultural insight videos. Now, I've unlocked all 24, and as I said before, I'm going to make a video. We will watch these together, and I will discuss them with you. And I hope that you will learn a little something about the beautiful Native Alaskan people and their society. And will hopefully learn to be more open to different culture and learning about different places and different people. Alright, let's go.
One of the things I think a lot of people need to understand is we aren't a museum piece. The Inupiaq people are a living people and a living culture. Even though we're in northern Alaska, which covers this vast area from Nome all the way over the Canadian border, is that there is this extreme value of interconnectedness and interdependence.
It's a hunting society, a gathering society from thousands of years.
This is what creates our culture.
That special relationship between humans and the natural world and the animals, and that it teaches you how to have a society that doesn't do too much harm to the world.
Love and respect for nature, for one another, for our elders. Very, very fundamental value, key to life.
Our values are something that bind us all. The importance of sharing with one another, the importance of spirituality, and the connection to the land, our traditions, how we hunt, sharing of stories and songs and dances.
I'm Inupiaq. I'm from the Arctic Ocean.
I am Inupiaq.
It's very important to me. It's who I am as a person.
And we're very proud of who we are, and we want to continue that.
I just want to say, growing up in, I think many ways, most people are not aware or taught how Native Alaskans, Native Americans, and other Native tribes in different countries were mistreated. How they had their culture literally stolen from them, and they were forced to learn English or some other language. And the fact that they somehow not only survived, but are able to still find a connection with the earth, with the animals, with each other, it is truly an amazing, wondrous, just heart-moving. I love the fact that they prefer to work with nature instead of against it. Whereas you'll see a lot of big game hunters who go out and just kill the animal to kill the animal for sport, to say they did. And here in their culture, they're grateful for each animal. This life is given for their survival. And they are grateful to the earth and nature itself for giving them what they need to survive. And I think we as a society need to remember to do that, to be grateful for what nature gives us and not just take advantage of what's there and act like, oh, well, there'll be more of it, or, you know, it's not a big deal. That's how we end up with animals going extinct. That's how we end up with plants going extinct. That's how we end up with the greenhouse effect, because so many things are taken for granted instead of appreciated. Let's move on.
It'd be busy, busy, busy all through the day. You get up and you just go right to work, you know, right to work.
There was always something to do. There was never any idle time. The only idle time we had was after we eat and before we go to bed.
One of the older people would just be relaxing, laying down there and saying, you know, it'd be really nice to hear a story. And then just organically, someone would just start telling a story.
Storytelling for the Nupiaq people is very important because it not only created that sense of community, but is a way to pass on wisdom to the next generation.
It was like TV, you know? It was just like, it was as good as anything, any movie you've ever seen. And the storyteller told it so clearly that it was just as powerful as any of the greatest movie blockbusters you've ever seen.
There was a reason behind the stories that we were told, because they held traditional knowledge. They held things that we might need to know in life, whether it was about how to find food or how to survive, or it was about well-being and the importance of connecting with people and being a good member of the community.
We all do stories. We all live in stories. We all tell stories to our friends. And they need to be told. They need to be heard.
I like how they use stories as a way to pass down information. You know, most people, when they think stories, they think of like sci-fi or romance or mystery, you know, these type of stories. But the Native Alaskans and Native Americans and different tribes all over the world, different cultures all over the world, have passed down stories back in the old days, before there was writing implements or papyrus or paper or anything to write on. They would tell stories with what they had. And they would pass on knowledge of how to do things, how to perform tasks, how to survive. Stories of past events that happened and keep their history alive. I think these kind of stories are truly amazing because they not only keep the past alive, but they keep the people from the past alive as well, because they're remembered and their knowledge goes on in these stories that are being shared with the younger generation. And there's an old saying, when you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, them keeping the history alive is what they are using to keep from repeating it. Or if something does happen, they know what happened last time and how to handle it. And I think this is truly amazing, the way they do this. Alright, let's go on to this one, Scrimshaw.
So scrimshaw is this really beautiful method of art that's done either on baleen or ivory, and traditionally it was used to tell stories.
Each etching is telling a story of some event. Caribou hunting was taking place. This is what was going on. War began around this time, and so it sort of gives you a timeline of history through etching.
An elder or the person who carved it would literally be able to read the Scrimshaw story.
They're like reading a book, in a way.
A lot of the storytelling traditions would be things that after the storytelling was done, we'd just rely on the next person telling it. And so Scrimshaw is a very important way for Alaskan Native people to record their history.
Now, as I said before, other places, they have required us to keep information written down, facts, stories, whereas the Native Alaskans didn't have that. Many tribes didn't have that all over the world. And so they used and utilized what they had in their life, including animal bones, or in this case, the ivory came from their teeth of the whales, and the baleen, if I remember correctly, is also teeth from like a now I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it's from like a whale that's a filter feeder. They have these long kind of teeth that come together and create like this filter. They suck in a bunch of water with krill, and then they close their mouth and they push the water out, and then they consume the krill. And that's kind of why I'm impressed with Native Alaskans and many other tribes, is they utilize everything they are given in nature, in the animals that they hunt. They use the skins, the organs, the bones to make anything from tools, cooking utensils, to pots, and they give respect to the very animal, and they don't just go out and just destroy like so many people do. They live with nature, not against it. I think more people could learn from that. If we could learn to live with nature better, we'd be better off instead of destroying it all. We need to learn to live in balance with nature so we can keep it, because it's what keeps us alive. I love this little fox. He's so cute. Reminds me of Wu Young. My teenies will know who that is. If any of my tees are watching this, I love you.
When I was growing up, my grandpa had a pet white fox. If you're a good friend with a fox, when there's danger abound, they try to keep you from getting into trouble.
Aww.
They pull tricks here and there, and foxes are like spoiled little kids in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
When you let her out, she'd go prancing out in the snow, jumping in the air. I know she was happy then. Come running at me and jump on my chest, knock me backwards, lick my face, and I try not to let it. So that was my memory of my grandpa's pet fox.
That is such a beautiful creature. The fact that so many don't realize that when they think fox, they think like a hen house and them stealing the hens and chickens and stuff like that. But they don't realize foxes are actually quite friendly, they're quite smart, they're quite loyal. Definitely reminds me of Wu Young. Mischievous, playful. They're truly amazing creatures. And the fact that this one lives in the Arctic in a tundra, okay, that is extreme weather, extreme cold, and survives that. He's a tough little guy, you know? That is one tough little fella right there. Okay, caribou skin clothing was best. See, this is also another example of what I meant by them utilizing all that they have when they hunt an animal. They don't just take the meat and throw things away or mount the head or something for some trophy. They actually are hunting for survival, true survival. And they utilize every part of the animal to do so.
Caribou it provided for us in many ways.
Our clothing in those days was made of all caribou skin.
I grew up wearing caribou pants, mittens, caribou skin mattress, blankets.
Some people had boots that were made with wolf leggings, sealskin sole bottoms. Baleen was shaved to make insoles. They kept us quite dry and warm as well. But the caribou skin clothing was the best. We would get as many yearlings as we could for our outer clothing. And for heavy winter, we would get caribou in February or March because the hair was the longest and the skin was the thickest, and we would use those for our winter gear. With that stuff on, you could sleep outside in 50 below and it wouldn't bother you a bit.
Notice how you point out that depending on what type of clothes they were making for what season, depending on what season they would hunt in. Like in February, since it's winter and lots of ice and snow, they would hunt the caribou then because, as he said, the skin was thicker, the fur was thicker, so it meant it would keep them warmer. And using baleen, shaved baleen, to line the inside of the boots to keep them warm, and the bottom of the shoes soles being made of sealskin because they are waterproof. Because you're tracking through ice and snow, and of course it's going to get wet. And if it gets wet and just goes through to your feet, you're just going to end up with, frostbite. So they were very smart in how they used everything. They're not the type that goes out just hunting a ton of animals and just wasting those animals, or for whatever reason that others would do. They actually hunt for survival and survival alone. And that is what is important. We need to remember that. I always teach my kids, if you're going to hunt, only kill an animal in self-preservation circumstances, like a mountain lion is going to attack you and you have to defend yourself. And then just do it to wound it enough to scare it off if you can. And only for actually eating. I was raised this way, and I want my kids to be raised this way as well. Sila has a soul.
Sila is the weather. It also means the atmosphere. Here's the Nuna, or the land. And it's anything from the land into the moon, the sun, the stars. That's Sila.
It's a very spiritual, and we have a relationship with Sila. Sila has a soul in the same way we do as people, in the same way animals do.
I think spirit helpers in and of themselves are really about how we're connected with things. And so it may be that there's a spirit helper that shows themselves as a bird to show you the way home, or it may be a spirit helper that actually decides to show themselves with the face and body of a man instead of their animal form. And so I think one of the things that's hard to understand is that it's not one way of seeing things, it's one way of knowing you're connected to everything.
We've always had that spirituality of everything around us.
It's the interaction you have with the air you breathe, the ocean that you gather resources from, the rivers from which you gather fish, the tundra from which you pick berries, the animals that give themselves. It's all of that.
See, here, when they speak of spirituality, most people, when they think spirituality, they think religion. But in this case, spirituality just simply means your spirit or soul connects to that other parts of the world and other creatures of the world, like animals and the ocean and the sky and the forest and the land that gives you life, because it helps sustain you. All these things, all these parts of nature help sustain your life. The trees give you wood, they give you shade, some give you food, the earth gives you food, the water gives you something to drink. It also has food in it that gives you sustenance. The sky, the sun gives us warmth to keep us warm throughout the days, and the moon gives us light at night so that we can see. Which is why I say we need to take care of what we have, because when you put out a lot of pollutants in the air, it ends up in the water, it ends up in the land, which then ends up in the food we eat, because if it ends up in the water, it ends up in the animals in the water that we eat. Even if you're vegan, okay, it will end up in your plants, because they use that water, they take in the pollutants from the air, and you're consuming that, and we're putting that toxins into our body, and it's not healthy. So we need to be more careful about how we consume things like energy, food, any kind of substance, or what's the word I'm looking for? Let's see. Resource. That's the word I'm looking for. Any kind of resource from the earth. We need to take care of the earth, because it's what keeps us alive. And if we don't take care of it, we're basically not taking care of ourselves. So we need to show respect for it. And how they say they feel connected to it. It's like, have you ever gone out in nature? It's just, you feel this calm, this peace come over you. It's as if you're connecting with it. Or staring up at the sky, or staring out at the ocean. You feel kind of like this connection to it. This powerful, beautiful connection. And are awed by the very vastness of it. That's what I consider an important spirituality, more than any other kind. And I think when we connect that way with the earth, and we connect that way with people, we can truly find a better, more peaceful world to live in. A happier, healthier society.
In the winter, when we were traveling, we didn't build sod houses, we built snow houses. In Canada, they call them igloo, but here in Alaska, we call them apuya. We do a day of travel, and then we'd make a apuya. The next day, my father would set traps, spend the day there, rest the dogs, give them something to eat, and then the following day, we continue to the next place. We'd go to my dad's sister, who had a house at Dubarg. They had a small sod house over there. We didn't have to do anything. We just visit with them, and my dad and my sister were glad to see each other, and they'd talk away while us kids played outside or go to sleep. By the time we get back to our home, my father would leave us with our aunt or with my grandmother, and then he'd start on his trips and go check his trap line. We were not into 8 to 5 kind of time, you know. We're in a total different kind. We're in ecological time.
I like how he explains it. The fact is that they are not on 8 to 5 time or 9 to 5 time like many jobs are. That there are actually some jobs out there, some things that you have to do that are on an ecological time, like hunting, because there's hunting seasons. Certain times of the seasons you can hunt, certain times you can't. So you're on the time of the earth and its seasons, like for instance, farmers. Okay, it may seem like they're on a specific set time, like get up at 5 in the morning or get up 4 in the morning and stay up to this late at night, but they're not. They're actually on ecological time because they have to plant between a certain time to make sure that that crop gets planted. And so it can have enough time to grow and be ready to be harvested before things like snow and many other weather conditions that could be adverse to that plant growing, or because too much rain can make it sit there and make it where you can't harvest it because you need it dry. And if you harvest it while it's wet, it can end up rotting. So they're on a very precious timeline, and it's an ecological one, is a natural one, is created by nature, and they have to work with it to be able to grow what they need to grow or hunt what they need to hunt. And I like that he points this fact out, and not just saying, okay, this is what my dad did. He went on this trapping trail, but he states that we were on a time that was not our own, one we had to follow. And I really appreciate him sharing that with us.
Drum is something that's common to all cultures in Alaska. All cultures have a drum that may have some stylistic differences or differences in the materials that it's made, but it's still in recognition of life and vitality. And the drum mirrors the heartbeat. And when you continue drumming soon, it will be in line with your heartbeat, because that's what it's supposed to be, the heartbeat of the community, and it symbolizes vitality. And it's the most tremendous feeling to be in a room and to have one long row of all the drummers and to have that feeling of unity, everyone beating in harmony, the drum beat in unison. It's the most beautiful feeling. And to know that you're connected, you're on the land that you are connected to. And even if you grew up outside of the community, that which is in you comes from this area. And it's the greatest feeling.
Man, I went at it and look what happens. Oh.
I'll point out here that drums, yes, are If you ever notice, drums are often used in music all around the world. It doesn't matter if it's jazz, blues, rock and roll, country. Drums are used to create a emotion. Because as I said, it's like the heartbeat. And our heart will react to different situations and how fast it'll beat, how slow it'll beat. If it's a peaceful type song, it'll relax us and our heart rate will slow down. If it's like a fast-paced song, it's like, all right, let's get going, and it can speed up. The drums could be used for times of war, and when you heard that drum, it was like the pounding of feet, the beating of a heart, and people knew what was going on. So I think everyone everywhere at some point on the whole earth, all culture, everywhere has had drums. Because I think everyone everywhere in some form or way felt it in their heart when they played it or listened to it and understood somehow that it was a connection between the drum and the person's heart. So I think that's an amazing and incredible way of expressing oneself by using them. Alright, on to little people.
They're just like other people. They just happen to be very small and extremely strong.
These are stories that are common throughout Alaska. It's normally that people are size from your elbow to the tips of your fingers, and they possess superhuman strength. So they may be tiny, but they can carry a whole caribou.
And if you go up north and you talk to a number of the people in the community, they'll talk about having seen the little people.
There's a place at home that we know, but we don't profess it to anybody.
But it's not like the boogeyman.
They can be mischievous, they can be ornery, or they can be helpers.
And every now and then, we might have the opportunity to see them, especially if they want us to see them.
The fact that it's across Alaska really tells you something about our history and how we interacted with nature around us.
I really love these little people. I think it's quite beautiful. I think that in some ways that the little people represent nature, perhaps, and the animals in it that often have helped people along the way in some form or way. And I think in all cultures there are such things as these little people. Like in Irish, they have leprechauns and brownies and fairies and just many different types of creatures that can be mischievous or they can be helpful. And I like that they have this beautiful little, these creations that they have, and just it's absolutely lovely to know, and I'm sure that they have been in many a story that they've shared with the younger ones, and I'm betting that the little ones have, when they've gone out, actually looked for them, and I just find that to be absolutely just truly beautiful. And I hope they continue this tradition. Bola.
The bola is what we call Kilamitan. And the Kilamitan is made out of braided sinew tied out to some heavy bone which you could twirl. In my case, we're catching ducks.
When we're out whaling, sometimes the ducks start flying, and they're good for duck hunting. You know, if you're a whaling crew, you can't make too much noise, so you can't use a shotgun for getting some duck soup handy, you know. So bolo was a really handy weapon to use for catching ducks. You know, the ducks fly in, you throw it up and tangles up the bird, and down they go.
See, this is another example of them utilizing every part of an animal that they hunt. They take the sinew and they braid it to make a rope. They take the bones to make weights, and they create a hunting implement to catch animals that normally, you know, you don't want noise being made when you're hunting them, because one, it'll scare them off, or it'll scare off something else you're hunting, in this case, like the whales. So they're very smart, intelligent, and wise people for doing this, and I have great respect for that fact.
The scaredest I've ever been, I was 12 years old. We floated out on a piece of ice while we were duck hunting. It was a bluebird day, just clear blue skies, and there was 3 of us, myself, my brother, and my dad. Next thing you know, we see this dark shadow on the ice. We look and it goes behind us. So we all jumped up, startled, and my dad, he started running. We got back to the ridge there. The ice had fractured, cracked, and broke off, and we were floating away. We were drifting. It was close enough to where my dad would have made it. He stopped and he thought about throwing us across, and if one of us was on the other side, we would be split up. So he stopped, and he just so happened to have a cell phone on him. 911 didn't pick up. That's the worst feeling in the world right there. 911 did not pick up. So he left a message, because they record their calls. Once he had relayed that information, his cell phone died. That was the scariest moment I've ever had in my life. We were floating away, and I thought we were left for dead. He kept calm during this situation. He's bringing out everything positive in this case. You know, I'm crying, my brother's freaking out. It went from clear blue to dense fog. Within a couple hours, we heard the chopper flying around, so they must have gotten our message. We thought we were saved, and then the chopper sound went away. So we lit some of the sled on fire. It's plastic. We thought black smoke in the fog would create some kind of marker. Chopper pilot had mentioned when we got rescued, you could see a glow in the fog, and he slowed down there, and sure enough, as soon as he slowed down, we got within visual. That was definitely the scariest moment of my life, was floating away and not knowing what the outcome was going to be.
As a parent, this story touches my heart, especially because I have been in a situation where my kids and we were driving along, and we had a blowout, and the car kept pulling to the left towards an 18-wheeler, and I was trying to get it to the right to stay in the right lane, and we went off the road, off the interstate, down an embankment, and flipped several times and landed in the wood. And I had one kid who was panicking, I had another kid who was crying, I had a kid who was just like a little over 1 in the car seat. I could not get the door open, so I had to try and hopefully roll down the window, which worked. I wanted to panic the whole time, but I knew I could not panic. I had to stay calm for my children. I had to stay calm in this situation. It was terrifying. I was able to get them out the window because we landed on our side, on the driver's side. So I was able to get them out the window, and I was able to get out the window myself, and we were going to head up to a house because I couldn't see the road. But then I heard someone calling from the roadway, and I saw someone coming toward us to help us. Yeah, it was utterly terrifying. A lot of people don't realize, I think kids don't realize in those situations that the parent themselves is very scared. But because we are the parent, we have to stay calm, we have to stay collected during this emergency, or the situation can get worse. We tend to cry later. No, I seriously mean that, we do. Because I cried later that night after the kids were in bed and they were asleep and they were safe. I cried. So I can only imagine how, I know how that father felt. He must have been very scared. And he didn't want to leave one of them stranded on the other side of the ice to the mercy of the weather or anything else. So staying together was the best choice he could make. And they were smart in setting fire to the sled to be seen. So he stayed calm in a difficult situation, in a life or death situation, and was able to get them out of that situation. And I say kudos to that dad. You're amazing. You're awesome. And I'm sure your sons are very proud of you.
We're very much aware of the climate change. And it's been for many years, even before climatologists were noticing this change, Inuit were already saying, Sila alangoktok. Our climate is changing.
If the heat is going the way it is right now, for us it's going to be pretty bad. Different birds are coming, and they're coming earlier, and sometimes rain is more than what we want, because when there's more rain, we know it's going to melt the permafrost.
In my time as a young whaler, when I was 9 years old, we're hunting from ice that was about 25 feet thick. And there's giant icebergs already floating, coming by. That was the first signs of a changing climate. Ice that never broke before was now moving. Now, here it is 50 years later, we're hunting whale from ice that's 18 inches thick. There's no more thick ice.
It's creating a malfunction in our whaling season is what it is. Actually, more than that, all seasons in general.
I think we are more scientists than more people will realize. We have more knowledge of those things than people will ever know.
The fact that they bring this up, there are a lot of greenhouse effect deniers, climate change deniers. They'll say, oh, well, it's natural, it happened for. No. We are having an effect on the weather. We are having an effect on the earth through what we use, whether it's natural gas, whether it's coal, whether it's burning wood, whether it's oil. We are creating this effect. They went from 25 feet of thick ice to be able to stand on and whale on, and to 18 inches, which is 3 feet. They lost 22 feet. 22 feet of ice. How is that not the earth heating up? And too much rain, so that it destroys the permafrost, which protects the the plants below it. Seasons are getting longer and hotter, and you're getting weather that's not normal in certain areas happening. Like last month, for instance, it was raining and I was outside, and this is June we're talking about, okay? All of a sudden, in June, we start getting hail. Hail. Okay? Why are we getting hail in June? It wasn't just hail, we were getting hail and sleet. So there was no reason for us to be getting that type of weather in the middle of June. That's crazy. That's why it's important to utilize what we have wisely. For instance, the wind and the sun are free. And they can create energy, just like the water turbines in dams do. But they have a less impact. And we have more energy efficient bulbs, we have more energy efficient appliances, which we can use, which helps lessen our carbon footprint. So why would we not want to stop and try and reverse what's happening? These people know because they live that life. So they're there every day watching this happen. So if I'm going to trust anybody, it's going to be them. Because they know what's going on. Because they've lived this life for thousands of years. And they see the changes that are being brought upon our planet and our earth because of overconsumption, whether it's overfishing, overhunting, over deforestation. We need to, as a whole world, as humans, to find a balance with nature so that we not only can survive but thrive. And so can the earth. That's just my opinion, though.
My brother was out seal hunting. He got attacked from behind and managed to grab his knife and save himself. When he came to realize, oh no, it's a mother. We've always known traditionally that we avoid killing a mother. It's always been sacred to us to protect them. He had to present himself to the council, and so he was given the job to mother the baby, and we kept it. It got so big, it went over the barricade one day and got to the dog food, and that was an indication that, brother better go teach it how to survive on its own. So he did. I really got attached to the bear because I more or less grew up with it. And some days when brother took him walking, once in a great while he'd put me on the bear and I would ride on it like a horse. I was just happiest little girl in the world.
Sorry about that, I had to go grab me something to drink while that was running. The fact that the Native Alaskans and many Native American tribes and other tribes all over the world, if this was the normal, everyday human, oftentimes we would say, just leave the creature to their own device. And if they survived, they survived. If they didn't, they didn't. Or we would just end their life. So that way they wouldn't suffer or starve to death or whatever. But see, here they took responsibility for that living creature. They took responsibility and caring for it as the mother would, raising it, teaching it how to hunt for itself. And I think that shows a major difference between how they themselves are connected to the earth and connected to the creatures of the world, as opposed to how so many other people aren't. We often find ourselves, we disconnect ourselves from it. And I think that's a detriment to our society and to the earth and just overall to the whole as a society. I'm so glad that they took care of this young polar bear. And as you can, a lot of people will sit there and say, well, why is it you can hunt the male but not the female? Well, the reason being is the female is the one that carries the babies and gives birth to the babies and nurtures the babies and increases the population. And if you're killing off the females, it doesn't matter what female we're talking about. It doesn't matter if it's an animal, it doesn't matter if it's a human. You're basically keeping the population from growing. You're destroying it. And you're bringing down the numbers. And that's not okay. We have to be more careful about how we consume what we do and how we do it.
In, Arctic Alaska, hunting is a really important part of life. It's not just about going and shooting something, it's about going and putting food on the table. But more importantly, subsistence hunting isn't just about the insular family unit, it's about feeding the whole community. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about subsistence hunting in Alaska is that people go out and they'll go get, fish, or they'll get a caribou, and they'll get, seals and whales. And one of the first things they'll do is they'll say, oh, I need to take this to the elders. This isn't just about one individual surviving or one family surviving, it's about the whole community.
We didn't just go out and kill and put in a freezer. It's like a ritual that I learned from my parents.
It's all about relationship. I don't know. I think there's a lot of camaraderie involved, and just being out on the land or being out on the ocean. It's like getting back in tune.
I'd rather be out there. To me, once I go out there, it's the world that I learn from.
I like how they show that they don't just hunt for food. That they hunt to sustain the community itself, to help others in the community, to help feed others in the community. It's not just for themselves, i.e. that one person or that one family, but it's the whole community as they work together. And I think if we could do this, because there are so many countries that waste so much food that could be given to people who are starving, who are going without food, who are homeless. And I think if we could find a way to utilize what we have and use it in a way where we aren't just sustaining our life, but helping others to improve their life as well, we can be better off as humans and as a community and just as an overall world. That's just my opinion.
Now we spend all our time out in nature. You get very intimate with the world. And over time, if you're living that life, you start to sense that everything has a spirit. There's a consciousness in everything. Everything is alive. If everything is alive, then we want to respect it. And if we're going to use it, we want to use it respectfully.
What I try to tell my nephews and nieces, you know, you love to hunt, you have to take care of the animals that you catch, preparing the food and eating the food that you catch.
Water provides you. The ice brings you life. It provides all those things that you need to be a part of your life.
That was something I grew up with. I grew up respecting the animals. I grew up respecting the land. And that, to me, that is why we as Inupiaq, as an Inupiaq culture, as an Inupiaq people, is why we're so successful.
See, this is exactly what I'm talking about, how they have respect for all of it. They realize that it may not seem like it's alive in the sense of breathing air like us, or you know, the rivers, the oceans, but they are alive. They have life in them. They give life. The weather gives life. It can take life. And if we work against it, we are doing more harm to ourselves and it than we are if we work with it and become in tune with it. I'm hoping in the future that more people will learn to be in tune with nature and what we have, and respect it, respect the animals, respect the water, the land, the air we breathe, and take better care of it.
I think most central to the ideology of the Inupiat is the idea of sharing.
Being able to feed the community, feed others. That's why we hunt. You know, in the old days, that's what you needed to survive, you know.
The sharing is important because it's how the community survives together collectively.
We just give. That's how I grew up. That's the way I'm always gonna be. Because of who we are, we always think about other people first.
If our people didn't share in the old days, we wouldn't have survived in this harsh, climate, environment.
See, I like this. Because sharing wasn't just about their survival. It was about the survival of their community, of the society. They shared the food that they caught, the skins that they got, everything from it, to help others in their society survive. Because eventually, if you don't, people are going to die off and eventually become extinct. You'll lose these societies because you're only worried about yourself, and so when a time comes for there to be where you might need help, there's no one there to help you. So I think sharing for survival, whether it's food or shelter or trying to find a way to, even if it's just you're sharing money to certain causes to help in bringing fresh water, clean water, food, clothes, housing to others. Even if you're doing it that way, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful act, a beautiful act to do. And I appreciate all you out there who give of themselves and their time to help others to not only survive, but to thrive even. Thank you for that.
Big Diamond, Little Diamond, and King Island. And in those three islands are the stepping stones to get to America.
So King Island is this absolutely beautiful place off the coast of Alaska. And if you can imagine being on this really kind of rocky island that kind of shoots up from the water to these cliffs, And then all of a sudden you see these stilts, and then you look up and there are these houses.
They were built on the cliff up high because of the ice. Being an island in the Bering Sea, you have ice that's being pushed by the winds onto the island. So it's going to pile up 50, 60 feet high. Structures are still there today, and people have returned to King Island. It's a growing community as the people return back to their island.
I find this to be amazing. Truly, because they are literally working with nature to survive. They're creating houses on stilts high up off the ground and away from the ice that comes up. So they're working with what they have in nature and creating a place where they can stay warm and they can stay dry and they can live and grow. And that is very smart in how they've done so.
When I was young, my mom, whenever the Northern Lights came out, she'd just whistle.
Boy, they come alive. Just keep whistling and that aurora will just like, you can almost hear it.
And then she explained to me a little bit later that those are children, and children who've passed away when they were children. You don't want to draw them in too much, is what she said, because then they could play football with your head, play Eskimo football, and that's what they want to do. They're always playing, those children up there.
Don't play out without your hood on. If you don't have your hood on, the aurora person is going to come down and chop your head off and play ball with your head.
It wasn't like they were trying to do bad, or it was like a scary story or anything like that. It was just, that's how it was, that's what it was.
I love how they have a story for the Northern Lights and what they are. I mean, we know scientifically what they are, but I love the fact that they have this lore for what it is. And I find it really beautiful.
In the month of November, there's no sun. So during that dark time, we travel by the light of the moon. It's quite different. Everything was silver and black. Toward the horizon, we could see where caribou are because their body heat flowing upward, and we could see it glowing in the moonlight against a dark horizon where there's no stars. If somebody yelled, you could know who yelled from where the sound came from, but specifically where that cloud of their breath went up and it glowed in the moonlight. So that was a good time to travel. It was very surrealistic. And so things that were dark objects looked very close, and white objects looked very far.
Wow, imagine a whole month of nothing but night. I'm serious. Wow. And the fact that the breath and stuff would glow in the moonlight. That's how you would see where someone is. Yeah, I agree with him. It must have been so very surreal. It's kind of like when on a moonless night, when you're out on a ship and you can't see anything. The only thing you can see is the stars reflected in the water and the stars in the sky, and it kind of creates this never-ending stars, like you're sailing through the stars. And it must be completely just awe-inspiring. Completely just a whole another level of beauty and emotion that is created. I'm not sure I could deal with a whole month of nights. But it sounds truly amazing. It sounds like nothing else.
We are taught that there's no hierarchy. It's not everything else and then man, humans on top, and they're separate from everything. We're taught that everything is equal and that all the animals have a human form or can be seen in a human form. And so they have just as much or more intelligence. In fact, have a lot to teach people. And so that's how these transformations can happen. It's if the animal wants you to see it in its human form. There's a story where a man comes up to an ice hole and then realizes there's another man in his parka that's got stuck in the net, and is just stuck like that. Oh, can you let me out? Please help me, And so then he lets the man out, but then realizes that was actually a seal. That was a seal man. And just because that seal wanted that help, that seal allowed itself to be seen in human form.
See, this is another lesson I think that we can take. Humans are not above everything else. Okay? Because we need we need the other parts of nature. The animals, the earth, the water, the air, to survive. And if we treat it as something to just be taken and used and not respected, we're destroying not only them, but ourselves as well. I love how they recognize that they are not above the creatures. They're not above the earth. They're not above the water. They're not above the weather or anything. They are a part of it. They are part of a greater creation. And all together work together to create a better, to survive, to thrive. And I really think if more people in this world would get back to that, I think we could realize and become better as a society. Just like I know a lot of people think that they think they're better than someone else because they're a male, or because they're color of their skin, or something else that arbitrary. Society has told them this is what makes you better than somebody else. It makes you above somebody else. It's wrong. It's a detriment to society itself. It's a detriment to the people who are being taught this. It's a detriment to those people who come in contact with those people who are being taught this. People need to understand that we are equals as humans. That's the only thing you need to understand, is that we are humans. It doesn't matter if one person has more muscle than another person, or is taller than another person, or has more money than another person, or has, we are all human, and that is the one thing that we should be looking at. That is the one factor that we should only look at to be equals. Now let's move on.
We have our dimi, the body, which returns to Nuna, the earth. And we have Atif, who is our name that has been passed down to us over the generations. The spirit of our Atif lives on so long as man remembers that name. It would be hard to describe what happens after death. The feeling is that when our Aneganek returns to Sila, then that may be reborn if the name is passed on to a new child who can then retain some of the memories of the original name.
And so it's not uncommon for grown-ups or adults to meet a child who has the same name maybe as their grandmother and say, "Hi, Akka," which means grandma, "Hi, Appa," or "Hi, little mom," or "Hi, little dad," because it's the traditional belief that the soul, is continuing on.
Humans are renewed and replenished over time. Just like our plants. Every year, flowers are born and bloom and they die. Next year, they are born again.
I love how they talk about how sharing the name carries on that other person's memory, and that they carry a part of their memory into the future. I think this is a way to keep the people from our past, people we loved, people we cared about, some memories alive. And I think it's a beautiful way to honor those who are passed on and who have had a great impact on our lives in a positive way. Let's go on to Manslayer.
So a recurring type of character in Inupiaq stories is the manslayer. And the manslayer is kind of this bad guy. And I think really what's at risk when the manslayer comes into story is the livelihood of individuals and the whole community. And so the manslayer is really used as a way to say, don't act only for yourself, always hold the community in your heart. Oftentimes in these stories, there is one person that will stand up.
And what this humble person will represent, who faces that manslayer, is a return to order, a return to true living in the community. And it just takes that one person. It could just be that one person that can help to change everything. Because everyone wants to live a good life. Everyone wants to have a good community.
I like that they have a creation to express the idea of the bad things in life. The things like greed and selfishness and, disorder. And I like how they express that it just takes one person to make a change, and this is the truth. Because if one person stands up and says, okay, this is not right, and this is why, and that person saying so and doing so touches someone else, and they say, you know what, they're right, this isn't right. We shouldn't do this, we should do something else. And then that person shares that information, and slowly it spreads. Because all it takes is one spark to sit there and start a whole roaring fire. And in this case, it only takes one person to stand up and say, this is not right, let's do something about it. And I like that they have a character, a creation that expresses this, the bad that can be, greed and selfishness, as I've said. I think that the way they express themselves in such a lovely manner is truly wise and thoughtful. And we as people need to learn more on how to live as a true community and not just for ourselves all the time.
With regard to the environment, the blizzards have been one of the key elements that have impacted the survival of people, especially in the hard winter. We know a blizzard is coming when the moon is starting to get fuzzy. We also look at the stars. When the stars are twinkling fast, we know a storm is approaching. We look to the clouds in the sky to give us a direction the storm is coming from. We learn these as children by observing weather on a daily basis.
This is something that I think many people whose livelihood depends on the weather, or when they live in a harsh environment, keeping track of the weather and knowing when something's going to happen, when it can happen, gives them a chance to prepare and be better prepared for what's coming, so better chance of survival. And farmers would use like the Farmer's Almanac, and they would learn to read things to understand and, you know, kind of hopefully know what's going on with the weather, so that way it doesn't affect our crops or their harvest time. So yeah, some people are just naturally in tune with nature and can feel the differences and changes in the weather, like the drop in temperature or the drop in barometric pressure, and all these indicators of the weather changing. And I think that's very beautiful. Last one, folks.
With the story of Kunuk Sayuka, told by Robert Cleveland, it's just a masterwork. It's a well-known story among the Inupiaq people, and in our case, of producing a video game that really reflects indigenous heritage. It captures the imagination, and it's something that you have a very specific kind of task to do. There's a blizzard, you know, and it is just a non-stop blizzard that is overpowering the people, and there's one man that wants to figure it out. And in our case of the story, it's a girl that wants to find the source of that blizzard. The blizzard man, it's like that is the physical embodiment of an element of nature. And so there's a person that needs to go up and take away that's chipping away that snow.
In that community, the person least expected is the one who stands up and makes the difference.
Humility is something that we value, and where that comes from is the idea that you are not the biggest thing in the world. And when you live in an extreme environment like where the Inuit reside, you're at the whim of the environment, of the climate, of the animals. You can be as prepared as you can, you know, by learning from your elders that, you know, you're not the biggest force in the world.
I completely agree with what she says. We as humans often think we are the biggest force in the world. But Mother Nature often has a way of smacking us down. Whether it's through blizzards, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, you know, it has a way of slapping us around and saying, listen, little one, don't be sitting there being all big, brave, and bad and thinking you're the biggest. Because you are not the biggest. You are at my mercy and at my whim. You need to learn your place and behave. You know? That's what I feel Mother Nature often does. Nature often does. It does these things to remind us, look, the reason you're surviving is because we are here to help you survive. If you're not going to take care of us, why would we take care of you? I think we need to remember that by working with nature instead of constantly against it, we can hopefully avoid such things. I mean, will there still be some natural disasters? Sure. But if we can get a handle on what's going on in the greenhouse effect and the climate change and start to reverse it, I think we would be in a better place as people. We need to learn to live with nature, not against it, and learn to live with one another and not against everyone else. Now, I hope you have enjoyed your time in these lovely videos. I hope that you have learned something new about a culture. I hope that it has inspired you to want to learn more about different cultures, not just about different cultures, but maybe the world around you, nature in itself, and how you can make changes in nature and in a positive way. And maybe make you want to travel. Because if you get a chance to travel, do it. I know a lot of people say, well, grow up, get an education, have kids, stuff. But if you can travel, take that chance, travel, learn about the world around you, learn about different cultures, learn about how the earth works and how there are people who work with it and see the difference between your own culture and other people's culture. You may be surprised that y'all have many things in common, but there are also some things that you may not have in common. And you may learn something new, and you may teach something new. So I hope you will take that time and hopefully travel. Even if you're old or young, whatever. Learn about the world around you. Not just in your own community, but everywhere. Learn. Grow as a human, as a person. Grow not only intellectually, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Now, I'll leave you here today, and I'm not sure when I will be starting off on the next game. I'm going to have to look it up and decide. But I hope you enjoyed this beautiful, beautiful game and all that it had to teach us. Alright, I'll see y'all another time. Bye-bye.